Okay, so our first speaker tonight is Alan Morris of the Bristol Walking Alliance. Let me just share his slides, which are these. Okay, Alan, can we hear you, or do I need to just unmute you?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Oh, good, you've managed to unmute yourself. Okay, fantastic. Alan, take it away.
Okay, yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Alan Morris. I'm chair of Bristol Walking Alliance. And I'm going to talk about the Bristol scene from the point of view of the campaigning organisation that Bristol Walking Alliance is. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about walking, what's good, barriers, something about BWA and its campaigns. And then I'm going to move on to the wider scene in the context of what the council is doing, what the government's doing, and the recent changes post-COVID. Next slide, please. So just a quick introduction to Bristol Walking Alliance. We're a consortium of organisations and individuals campaigning to improve Bristol's walking environment. So that's what we do. We want to create an environment for those on foot that is welcoming, safe, convenient, and inclusive. Next slide, please. So I probably don't need to say this, but just to reinforce it, why is walking good? Well, it's good for your health and well-being. It's good for connecting with your local community, and it's carbon friendly. Next slide, please. But there are barriers to walking, and cars form a big part of that. They produce noise and air pollution, and the amount of road space allocated to cars is disproportionate to the number of people in the cars, whereas pavements can often be too narrow. Pavements can also be obstructed sometimes by cars. Sometimes pedestrian crossings need to be better, otherwise people don't feel safe. Another issue that comes up is sharing space with bikes in busy places, and for those with less mobility, if the only way to get somewhere is via steps, then that's a problem too. Next slide. So the Walking Alliance's campaigns, they cover both pedestrian-specific issues and wider issues that affect walking. So particular pedestrian-specific issues are pavement parking, continuous footways, pedestrian crossings, and enforcement against obstructions on streets. And wider issues are livable neighbourhoods, which you'll hear more of later, and air quality. Next slide, please. We do a lot of engaging with the council and with WECA, the regional authority. We engage about policy at all levels. We lobby for more funding for walking. We comment on travel and placemaking proposals and on planning applications and road scheme proposals. Next slide, please. So just expanding a little bit more on some of those campaigns. We've been running a pavement campaign, a pavement parking campaign for some time locally, but what it really needs is changes in the law at a national level. This government has promised to issue a consultation on proposals this summer, but we're still waiting to see it. And it's about time too. the Department for Transport is working on these proposals for a long time now, but they haven't seen the light of day, so we're hoping for them soon. Continuous footways, I perhaps should explain what those are. So if you're walking along a main road in the same direction as the motor traffic, every time you hit a side turning, then you're forced to stop to check it's safe to cross. If it's changed so that the pedestrian has priority, you don't have to stop each time, and it's a way of showing that pedestrians are important as well. And the council has accepted that these are a good idea in the right places, and has been working on standard designs, and we're waiting to see the outcome of that. We've engaged with the council on signalised crossings to ensure that the timing on crossings is the right sort of balance and fair to pedestrians, and they have made changes. And then street enforcement, that tends to be on a local neighbourhood level, but it has to be done in conjunction with the council's enforcement team and Bristol Waste Company. Next slide, please. And wider issues that affect walking. Liberal neighbourhoods, I hope you have seen that a Liberal Neighbourhoods campaign was launched earlier on this week. I think Tom will be talking more about that later on, and more about what Liberal neighbourhoods are. But just briefly, they apply in residential neighbourhoods, and the idea is that through motor traffic is stopped from going through the neighbourhood, and in doing so, it encourages walking and cycling. But I'll leave Tom to explain more later. And air quality, there are two things going on here. One, for some time, as you'll know, the council has been working on clean air zone plans to get the nitrogen dioxide emissions under legal limits, and that process is still going on. Secondly, there's particulate pollution, where an environmental bill is going through Parliament at the moment, and we wait to see exactly what's included in that. Next slide, please. So, looking at the context for walking and campaigning for walking, what's the picture I would paint with where the council is at? Well, I would say at a policy level, if you look at the council's policy documents on transport subjects, they all will tend to say the right things, and they will talk about priority being given to pedestrian and pedestrians being at the right place in the hierarchy of users. But it also actually depends what happens on the ground. And in recent years, there has been some nervousness about making radical changes, with concerns on the impact on the motorist. And there's been a tendency to look at bus schemes first to free up buses on the roads, and to improve the service for users on the grounds that there needs to be a good alternative if motorists are going to be persuaded to use public transport. And when walking improvements are made, they tend to be on the back of other schemes. Walking improvement schemes are not usually schemes in their own right just for walking. That may change though, because the council has recently developed a local cycling and walking and infrastructure plan, which the government has got all local authorities to do, which has forced them to actually come up with cycling specific and walking specific plans. So that is a good thing. And then some of the other things that the council have been doing recently are definitely going in the right direction. So the recent closure of Bristol Bridge, the school street schemes, where motor traffic is curbed at pick-up and drop-off times, and livable neighbourhoods, again, which the council does support, even if it's not actually pushing them to happen as quickly as we would like. It does support them. All those things are good. Next slide, please. So there's also changes at a government level. The Boris Johnson government has announced a lot of new money for cycling and walking, £2 billion, with some of that for fast track changes, which are starting to happen already. So whatever you think of his politics, that is definitely a good thing for walking. And those fast track changes include encouragement for point closures, partly because they can be implemented quickly, just using simple barriers or planters. And it does also include support for livable neighbourhoods. Just in the last 10 days ago, some more documents have been published, which include new design standards, which insist on segregation of cycle routes, which again is a really good change. And also they have announced a consultation on changes in the highway code, which emphasize more on pedestrian priority and the pedestrian at the top of the hierarchy of users. So that's very welcome too. Next slide. But just turning to what's happened very recently. So just to summarize some of the transport impacts of the COVID pandemic. So as we know, fewer people are using public transport because they don't feel comfortable in doing so. And also the public transport has got less capacity anyway. As a result, some private car journeys have increased, but there has also been more walking. And we've seen more street space given for social distancing in busy places. The photograph on the right is in Westbury Village, showing the queuing space in space taken away from the normal road space. And another interesting impact of it is that peak traffic flows are down. Although the levels of traffic at other times of days has returned pretty well to what it was before, because more people are working from home, the peak flows are actually less than they were. And that helps the council take decisions to do more radical reallocation of road space in some places, which is a good thing. Next slide, please. So what are the fast track measures been? Well, there's been wider pavement changes in various high streets across Bristol. There's been pedestrianisation in Old City for certain hours of the day, and the closure of Bristol Bridge, except for buses and taxis and bikes, and at the other end of Baldwin Street as well. Next slide, please. So just to show 1 or 2 examples of that, and showing the local to the Clifton Climate Action Group. So these were the early changes on the Mall, with a long area of wider pavement. Next slide, please. And then a few weeks later, planters have been added. Interestingly, the extent of the wider pavements has been reduced, and some of the car parking has been reinstated. And the other thing that's happened is the space outside the restaurants and the pubs, the space is getting used more for sitting out, which is a good thing. And I understand that discussions are going on to make more changes in future. I know the local councils have been involved in conjunction with the Business Improvement District, and I'm sure others on this call know more about that than I do. Next slide, please. And then there's, I mentioned the Old City changes. By September, the restrictions will apply to all the roads in Old City. And the map shows the Bristol Bridge and Baldwin Street changes again. Next slide. So what are the Walking Alliance's views on these? Well, obviously we're really keen on the wider pavements, but the concerns we have as one, because they've been done very quickly, the roadworks type barriers that have been used are rather unsightly, and some improvement needs to be made to make them look better, even if it's just planters. And if they're not used very much, then we're afraid that people won't see the point and won't see any point for making them permanent. And it's really important that businesses are engaged with using the space outside their businesses. And that happens in some places, but not others. And lastly, the changes are quite partial. It's not actually enough to change the feel of the street, and the car parking still gets in the way. Next slide, please. So I'm hoping that there will be more improvements. I hope that there will be some placemaking work done, like planters. I'm hoping to see more businesses using the space in front of their businesses. This illustration is of Cotham Hill, which is quite locally, where I understand the businesses have got together and are supportive of a proposal. And I think Tom knows more about that. But the engagement on this has been quite patchy. Clifton has a business improvement district, and that's a good platform for having discussions about how the streetscape should look. But that's not the case in all places. In my local high street is Westbury Village, and there isn't the same lively, active business association which can help provide a platform for a conversation about these things. So it makes the engagement much more difficult. The council does intend to engage a bit more with business and has done some work so far, but there's a lot more that could be done. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, what does it look like for improvements in the walking environment. We've seen that what this government has announced are some radical changes and really good news. The pandemic, although it's been a terrible experience, has acted as a catalyst for changes that wouldn't have happened otherwise. I've heard Kai Dudd say that the closure of Bristol Bridge would have it has been brought forward by 5 years. But will the temporary changes that have been made, will they stick? I'm not too sure whether the high street changes will stick because of the comments I've already made. I think I'm hopeful that city centre changes will stick, because I do sense quite a strong commitment by the council to make these permanent. And the other things that are positive are the zero emission 2030 target. That must drive a change in transport policy, and I think it's starting to. There's a particular tool called Healthy Streets, which has been used in London, developed by Transport for London, which I'm hopeful that will be used in Bristol. It's a good way of measuring what a street which is pedestrian friendly should look like, and I hope to see more of that in the future. And lastly, I'm feel really positive about the Livable Neighbourhoods campaign as a force for change in the future. Next slide, please. So that's our contact details. Do join the mailing list for the Walking Alliance and join in the work we do, and equally do support the Livable Neighbourhood campaign. Contact details there. That's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Alan. That was really interesting stuff. I now have to do, what do I need to do? I need to make you host. So we've got, our next speaker is Tom Swithinbank. Tom, are you chair of Bristol Cycling Campaign?
No, not at all.
Well, we're going to pretend you are. We've got the chair of Bristol Cycling Campaign.
Nor do I want to be.
To match the lofty heights of Alan and the Walking Alliance. And then I just need to now do this. And then do that. There we go. Okay, yes, Tom Swithinbank. And sorry to be this guy, but I did say that we would try and get everything done by 8:30 and leave time for questions. So I don't want to rush you, because I know you've got some really interesting stuff to say, but what I'm basically saying is I don't know how to say it politely, but have fun.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So my talk will be fairly similar to Alan's, but obviously focusing on cycling. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of background. The Cycle Campaign was established in the 1980s. Its origins were in the opening of the railway path as a walking and cycling route. Amongst the organisation of volunteers, there's a great deal of expertise in cycling and infrastructure, what works, what doesn't work. And we've seen a real growth in the last year in sort of volunteers coming forward and engagement, and hoping that continues. I think what we've realised is that we need to persuade politicians that cycling can be a vote winner, as opposed to the opposite, which is probably more commonly thought. Next slide, please. So just some briefly our sort of asks for clear separated cycling infrastructure, for low traffic neighbourhoods, for policing of the 20 miles an hour scheme, which exists in Bristol and doesn't actually in a lot, but does exist in Bristol, and for obviously other traffic offences, and for cycling to interact with other transport modes where it meets at stations and bus stops, etc. Next slide, please. So similar to what Alan said, obviously public transport has reduced an awful lot, and some funding was made available for councils to make changes. We saw the announcement of Bristol Bridge, as Alan said, which came as a big surprise, I think, to a lot of people that has been brought forward, and it's great to see. I think it's been welcomed relatively well by the public, so we'll see how the consultation with that goes. The next slide, please. What we have seen, which has been quite interesting, is a little bit of a competition between various cities around the UK. I know it's quite easy to put lines on a map, but you can see there that, you know, Birmingham's making plans, Sheffield's making plans, Paris seem to be leading the way in terms of what they're doing and reallocating a lot of road space. And that's been really interesting to compare the pace of change from different cities from pretty much exactly the same sort of starting point of, you know, March, April. A lot of changes need to happen. Next slide, please. This is a quote which I thought I wanted to include. This was in the sort of criteria for the emergency funding. So any proposed scheme that does not meaningfully alter the status quo will not be funded. So that was really important, that they wanted to see quality schemes as opposed to painted cycle lanes, for example. And that's put real pressure on councils to deliver high quality things, which has been great. Next slide, please. You can see there, as just to emphasize that point, that what's been going in around the country is separated from the road from the traffic, in some fashion, and, you know, makes people feel really safe. And there's been some great pictures of children cycling on roads which they would never have dreamt of being able to cycle on or being allowed to. Next slide, please. So the council proposed some new cycle lanes. So we have from Clifton Triangle down to the Bear Pit and along Lewins Mead. And those were fairly slow to come about, but we understand that officers are under a lot of pressure and there just isn't the resource there to do things as quickly as they would like to. And it's important that the quality is right. And just on that sort of criteria from the Department for Transport, they did back up their words with action. So some councils only received 50% of the funding that they asked for. And some councils like Wecker received 111% of what they asked for and were rewarded for sort of ambitious bids, if you like. Thank you. So we've got what's been happening in Bristol. Those cones have now actually been replaced with these what are called wands, which are the same thing as the picture in the right. And I think generally the cycle campaign's pretty happy with what's gone on there so far. Some of the members of the cycle campaign are going to go for a ride round them with the officers over the next couple of weeks, and that'll be interesting to see what sort of feedback will come back. As Alan said, it's not pretty. That picture there with the bag with the plants in made me laugh. I said it was like a dad doing flowers at a wedding. It's kind of just sort of, I'll just put some plants in the bag, that'll be fine. But it does show how rushed it has been to get the stuff in. Next slide. So what's next? This is the council's consultation map that they've been asking people to fill stuff in on. You can like other people's comments, you can suggest new ones, and it just show the scale of desire for better infrastructure for walking and cycling in the city. So the council will be using that to choose its next moves, I think. Next slide, please. This is something else which we hope they'll be using. So this is called a cycleway prioritization tool. The thick blue lines are essentially cycleways which have the potential to be quickly roads which have the potential to have cycle lanes added to them quickly. So you'll see White Ladies Road, the A4 and the A38, or Gloucester Road as most people call it, top priorities. And the cycle campaign helped a new other campaign called Cycling Works get off the ground by giving it a bit of advice about how they could work. So that's a campaign where employers can ask the mayors to implement new cycle infrastructure. So if you work in Bristol, do get in touch with that campaign and see how you can help. We also made some asks for access-only streets. We did a good article in the Bristol 24/7, so do have a look at that. There's a link on our website, or I'm sure if you search, you'll find it. Some of these are pedestrianisation sort of schemes, like Park Street or Princess Victoria Street, Cotham Hill. Others are to prevent rat running, like Beaufort Road or Wade Street or Broad Plain. And we'll see how many of these are within the council's next round of funding. And then we move on to low traffic neighbourhoods. Minor roads just been mentioned. Yeah, that's an interesting one. That was on our list, as the council have said they will close a bit of minor road, but they haven't closed the bit of minor road which people expected them to, which would have been the bit where the shops are. And yeah, it just hasn't gone very well. It's been a good example of how hard it is to do engagement as quickly as probably the council are looking to do it. So we'll see what happens there. I feel like it might be withdrawn and then started again. So low traffic neighbourhoods, there's a webinar that the cycle campaign did probably 2 months ago now on low traffic neighbourhoods with a guy from Waltham Forest, which is where these two pictures are from. Essentially stopping rat running through an area by putting these little filters in that people can walk and cycle through, but cars can't drive through. So the idea is that you can access every house or business in the area by car if you want to, but it's made more attractive to walk and cycle by the routes, the through routes not existing anymore. So the idea of the campaign that the Walking Alliance and the Cycle Campaign have been working on, supported by Clifton Climate Action. We've had the support of lots of different organisations playing out, Older People's Forum, is that in each area we'll have a Facebook group, each ward will have a Facebook group, and people can join that Facebook group and put their ideas forward for how this might work in their area. So do look at our new website, which is livablebristol.org, and you can have a look at the process and how you might be able to help. And we'll see. The council does want to trial 2 low traffic neighbourhoods. I think they said by the end of 2022, which obviously now seems like a long time off. And we want that. We want a full rollout before the end of the next mayoral term in 2024. So much quicker than the council does. These have been implemented really well in a place called Walthamstow, and if you want to have a look, if you just type in Walthamstow low traffic neighbourhoods, you'll see lots of really good information about it. Next slide, please. This is just finally quite hot off the press. As Alan said, a bit of some more measures have been announced. The highway code, which I left off this slide, so apologies for that one. It's a real sort of first walking and cycling strategy. There'll be some long-term funding for walking and cycling, which will help councils plan. One issue is that the councils don't have the officers and the resource because they're only looking at funding sort of fairly piecemeal, whereas this will help them plan. It'll give new design standards specifically for cycling. I think that separation from pedestrians and cars will become the sort of baseline as opposed to the ideal. And there's going to be a sort of Ofsted for walking and cycling or active travel, which we hope will have some teeth to sort of maintain standards and recommend that funding is withdrawn if it's not up to standard. And there's also a note in there that all new road schemes will involve sort of new walking and cycling infrastructure as well. So we think that's really positive, but as always, it will depend on the level of funding and how much sort of power this Active Travel England will have. But it is, yeah, as Alan said, been a really positive few months for walking and cycling from the national government. And that is it, a bit of a whistle through. So yeah, that's just a little bit of information about the Walking Alliance, or links to the Walking Alliance and the cycle campaign and Livable Neighbourhoods. And Julie's popped a link in the chat for Livable Neighbourhoods as well. There's probably another webinar to do on that further down the line, but
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tom. Yeah, if do everybody check out the Livable Neighbourhoods thing. There was a little bit about it in our last newsletters for both groups earlier this week. And yeah, it's a really interesting campaign that people should know more about, I think. Okay. We've got two speakers in now from Travel West who are going to talk. We wanted to get the cycling campaign and the Walking Alliance in to talk about sort of activists, what's changing on a big level. But we also want to help you walk and cycle more. And so we thought, who better than Travel West to talk about that? So we've got Lauren Curl, who is a community engagement officer, I believe is the correct word.
Yeah, that's right. Hello, everyone.
Brilliant. And have we also got Louise, is it?
Yes, you do, indeed.
Yes, I can't see her on my screen. Okay.
I think she might be on the next.
Oh yeah, there she is, there she is. Okay. Which of you should I hand the sharing over to first?
You hand it over to me and then I'll pass it over to Louise.
Perfect.
Lovely. Okay, so now we're going to attempt to share.
Will be the host.
Brilliant. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to share my screen. Now, so can we all see the Travel West website here?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so yeah, so just to say, yeah, I'm a community engagement officer. I work for the Sustainable Travel team at Bristol City Council, and you may have come across me and met me on other projects and campaigns such as the 20 mile an hour scheme in the past, and also the idling action campaign that we started at the beginning of the year. It's on pause at the moment, and you'll probably see me pop up with that at some point too. But so just to say that Travel West is your kind of one-stop shop for all travel information in the west of England, and it is a resource that has funded by the DFT through things like the what was the local sustainable travel fund. So it's funded from the DFT. This is bringing together Bristol, Bath, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire. So it's resources to help you make your life easier, to grab your bike, to grab your trainers, or to go catch the bus. So on the website, I just thought it would be probably easier just to show everybody the Travel West website and just talk you through a couple of new pages that we put on there recently, just to make it a little bit easier. So, but I first wanted to just, this is the landing page. You'll see that there's sections for different modes. This is what it looks like now. We've just been told by Worker they will be updating the website and launching that this September. So, but it should have a similar look and feel and structure. So yeah, so it's about keeping you informed about what initiatives there are across the west of England, and just to promote sustainable travel relating to public transport, walking, cycling, car sharing, electric vehicles, and it's got loads of resources for schools, businesses and housing developers as well, or development, sorry. So one thing I just wanted to show you on here, in case you didn't know about it, was the journey planner. Which has a really interesting function. Not only can you look at bus arrivals, you can plan your journey for different modes from point to point, but it's also got this interesting function, and I think I've got a page open for it here, where you can put a point on the map and choose your mode of transport. So here I've chosen walking, and it can give you an idea of how long it will take from that point to walk and cycle. To walk in this case for 10, 20 and 30 minutes. So it's quite a good tool if you're advising somebody about kind of how they might get somewhere. But right now I wanted to tell you about our offers, our community offers. So we've recently just got this page updated. So now you have this is a page to tell you about kind of what we do, the support we aim to give both individuals, residents, community groups and organisations. We've compiled some tips and resources, but we've importantly put a new contact form on there. So if you have any suggestions or you want to get in touch with the team about anything, this is your first stop to get in touch with us. That will come through to the team at the relevant local authority that you're in. But as most of us are in Bristol, you will come through to one of us. Okay, so individual support. We have a roadshow team who can help individuals with personal travel planning. So this is a free service. It's currently offered by phone or video meeting. There are bike loans, but as you may have heard, there's a bit of a waiting list at the moment. We're looking to get some more bikes as well, so we can hopefully cut that waiting list down and get people on bikes as soon as we can. So with that, there's also free cycle training for adults. Of course, there's also the Family Cycling Centre up in Hengrove at the moment that's just reopened and is taking bookings, ongoing. So if it's families that you're after, then there's lots of help for getting families cycling on, and that's reached through the Better by Bike website. The other thing that I thought I'd highlight as well is they're offering accompanied rides to kind of help find the best route and build your confidence. We've put links to those people that to our offer to help people that are seeking work and skills. So there's lots of offers that Louise will talk about as well. We've got some free bus tickets. There's information about electric vehicles, so you can book a one-to-one session to talk that through. There is an electric vehicle demo loan as well. And there's also information about car clubs and car sharing. To access these offers, there is a form. We've currently got it on SurveyMonkey, and so that will just give the team an idea of what you're after so they can get in contact with you to arrange those offers. So most of those offers are completely free. Just going on to the communities page. So on this menu on the left hand side, you'll see get your community moving. So this is aimed at community leaders and organisations that you'd like to work with us so we can help get the offers out to the people you work with. At the moment we're focusing limited funds at the moment, and we're focusing it on areas of multiple deprivation, but don't let this put you off. Do get in touch if you've got an idea of how you'd like to work with us to get those offers out there. So again, I've just kind of put some ideas on there, like possibly we can get we're looking to get our Dr. Bike mechanics into the community free of charge, so people can book in some basic bike maintenance sessions. So I think that will hopefully break down the barriers of people having an old bike in the shed and help get them out and get them on it again. Again, cycle training, but this is we're really looking to kind of develop our bespoke offer with those community groups to be most effective. So there's a quick form. I can't see it, hang on. And again, it's on SurveyMonkey. That will come to us so that we can then start the conversation about that. Okay, so tips and resources. We've put a few links in here to help people both get active walking, cycling, and also I just wanted to scroll down to this bit here about creating safe and healthy streets. So there's links to Playing Out, there's links to Community Speedwatch with the police, there's also links to Fix My Street to report any problems like potholes or a road safety concern. Street parties, there's links to Bristol Waith's Big Tidy Pledge and cleaning up your street together. But yeah, so, and the other thing that I wanted to mention, I'm sure Louise is going to mention this too, is the updates from the from Bristol City Council on those road changes that have been mentioned, those things that are coming in very quickly. So this is the page to look at for that. And the map that has been mentioned in both presentations is here. So this is where you can submit. So if you can see my mouse scrolling down to the green bottom right, you can submit your idea by clicking on that button and finding the place on the map where you would like to enter your suggestion. So that will be there on an ongoing basis and be used to help prioritise. As people mentioned, you can like other people, so it's good to kind of zoom into a particular location that you're interested in and see what's been said already. Yes, so I think there was one thing that was mentioned in presentations, and that was about school streets. So school streets was suspended, obviously, in lockdown. However, they are looking to bring it back in the schools that were launched in February. So that's Wandsworth Primary and St Peter's, and then they're hoping to bring some more back or in much sooner than they were intended to, but in due course. So do keep an eye out on that school streets page for updates. So I will hand over to Louise here. What do I need to do?
Oh, sorry. So if you should be able to find the participants tab, either at the top or bottom. If you find the name on that and then right click, I think, and it should come up with the option to make host.
Sure.
Hey,
hey, done.
Oh yeah, someone's waiting in the waiting room as well, I think.
Oh, really?
Okay. So I will actually stick to my slides anyway, I think, actually, if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect.
But you should be able to see those now, is that right?
Yep, if you just make
I'll just enlarge that. Yeah, I thought it was just as easy for me to do a few screen grabs instead of taking you through the Love to Ride site. So yeah, Lauren's kind of introduced me anyway. So yeah, I'm Business Engagement Officer in the same team as Lauren, working on the Access project funded through the Department for Transport. So
really sorry, Louise, can you make the slides a bit bigger? You may need to enable editing and then home and then
yeah,
that works too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
cool.
fine.
Yeah, and can you see that clearly?
If you pull that down, yes, that's
yeah
better.
Okay, cool, rather than actually screen sharing it. Cool. I'll just go through that way instead. Okay. So yeah, the first thing that I wanted to mention, because it's an upcoming cycling campaign that we've got, is this year we funded Love to Ride to run a specific site in Bristol, and so I've been promoting that at the moment. So we've been funding this since April, and I've pulled just a few screen grabs so you can get an idea of what it's like. But Love to Ride, if you've not heard of it, is an online platform for logging your cycle journeys. So you can link it with Strava, so it's a similar kind of idea, but it's just a really, really friendly atmosphere. There's a lot of like high-fiving each other on there. It's just a really nice feel to it. So this is an example of my profile on there. So you can see that, yeah, I've logged quite a few journeys on there and a few miles and won various different badges. And you can sign up with your organisation, which is why it's fallen under kind of me to promote. And you can see that you can sign up with your organisation here. So I've put Bristol City Council down and your department as well. So there's various opportunities for chatting on the pages for both of those two things. You can also join various clubs and groups on there. So I've set up one with a few colleagues who used to work with us, so Travel West Alumni Group, and you can set various goals and that kind of thing. So if you can see where I'm pointing on here, so this is where I would add a ride, or if I'm on Strava, it would just automatically update and add it to my profile. And I've just taken another snapshot here of where I would click here on goals, and yeah, you can kind of set a long-term goal. It can be for you know, a certain event that's being run, like Cycle September, or it could be you could just set one because you fancy setting one. And I don't know if you can see that because it's a bit small on mine now, but you can say I will ride, you know, X number of rides, or it equates to different things on there. So calories, pieces of cake, glasses of wine, that kind of thing, just to make it a bit more fun on there. So if I just go to the next slide. So imagine that I've clicked here on the Bristol City Council link on my page. So this is just a few screen grabs that I've taken from that. So the reasons that we promote this to workplaces is because there's various leaderboards. You can also set up book groups on there, so bicycle user groups. And so this is just an example on the left here of a table that is up there all the time, year round, which would show the kind of top 10 riders based on like mileage or rides, and you can filter it by different events or months or the whole year or whatever you want to filter it by. And then the bottom right here, this is showing what people will be seeing in Cycle September. So coming up to the event, they ask everyone on the site to register for Cycle September, and then you start earning points as soon as September starts, and it's kind of the biggest event that we have for giving out prizes, so it's a really good time to kind of join the site. So the other benefit, as well as winning prizes on there to encourage people to cycle, is there's just a really nice community feel. This is a couple of examples from the stories page. So if I just go back to my profile, you can see up here, there's you click on stories, and this is where you post one of these. So people just post kind of their experiences of cycling around Bristol. It's been really nice to read during lockdown, actually, because obviously it's been a lot quieter and people have had like really lovely experiences cycling. And I have found this a real motivator, actually. I'm normally one of those people that, although I work in sustainable transport, I tend to cycle to work, I cycle to get somewhere, but I don't really do much leisure cycling. I prefer to go on walks or whatever normally, but I've really found this a really good motivator for getting on my bike and just doing, like, mixing it up a little bit. And then how you'd actually join, so you'd visit lovetoride.net/Bristol, and you automatically get put onto the Bristol site if you live or work in Bristol. If you don't, you can join the normal Love to Ride site. It's just that we've got particularly loads of prizes to be winning in Bristol at the moment because we're funding a Bristol site. So yeah, in terms of Cycle September, anyone who signs up from now until the 1st of September, there's an early bird prize where you could win a Cannondale bike worth almost $3,500. And yeah, then we've got various local prize draws that we'll be doing on a weekly basis throughout September, and that's just kind of a insight into what we'll be doing. So yeah, that's one of the main things that we've been promoting at the moment. Oh, sorry, someone else in the waiting room to join. But in terms of what I'm normally doing, if that one's loaded, these are our key business offers for any business based in Bristol. So we offer a 3-month loan of an electric bike, and that's my area. So we drop off the bike with the business and we collect it after 3 months, and the idea is that it's a kind of try before you buy. So if a business is thinking that they might benefit from having one as either a pull bike, or if they've got multiple sites that it would help to kind of get from A to B, then it's just a really good example. Because they are quite an investment, it's a good opportunity to try one for free. That's the other thing, it's completely free to use. And we also have a couple of those bikes available that have got trailers as well. So one of the things that is gaining popularity at the moment is obviously electric cargo bikes, especially as Alan mentioned with the clean air zone coming in. I think more and more people are going to be thinking about going for e-cargo bikes. So yeah, we've got limited at the moment, but we're thinking of expanding the number of trailers that we have. But it's not quite an e-cargo bike, but you get the kind of same similar experience of trialing that. The other thing we do is 50% match funded business grants. So in the past, that's covered just a really wide variety of things. So if it has funded e-bikes, actually, pull bikes, additional cycle parking for businesses. Really, if you've got a suggestion, then it's worth getting in touch with us, and we think about funding it. There's no real upper limit. It's based on a kind of scoring process, and if we think it's worth funding, we would fund it. In order to go for either of those two, you just need to get in touch. My contact details are at the end of this as well, and I'm sure we'll be able to send this round. And then we offer fully funded small grants up to £250. So again, we're kind of open to ideas if you've got a suggestion. So at the moment, we're allowing, with a lot of businesses working from home still, we're allowing them to use it to kind of incentivize staff to stay active without having, without commuting. So it's really kind of quite open to what they fund, as long as it's encouraging like people getting out on doing sustainable travel. And in the past, it has also funded like active travel breakfast as well. So if people are going into work, if they've cycled in that day, they can get free breakfast, that kind of thing. So again, open to suggestions. There is a link there, and if this circulates around, that takes you to the application page for that. The other thing, key offer is our champion scheme. So with all of these, really, we'd ask you to sign up to our champion scheme, which is just where one person in the business, or at least one person, becomes kind of the main point of contact between us and you. And with that, you get access to a load of resources. So firstly, an emergency cycle repair kit, which is quite a nice bit of kit, which has got, spare D-locks and that kind of thing for staff to use, spare inner tubes and that kind of thing. And also just loads of signposting to our other offers and all the things that Lauren has said about the individual support. We do a lot of signposting to that as well. And then finally, the other key offer is workplace travel audit. So if you've never worked with us at all and we've got no idea about your business, it's probably a good idea and a good starting point for us to do this audit, which is where we would, it's all desk-based, unless we come and do a site audit as well. But it's just to kind of get an idea of how you're currently working, and then we can give you a bespoke report on what suggestions we'd make to improve on sustainable travel. And finally, to keep in touch with what's going on with us and the council in general, we've got a business engagement newsletter from Travel West. And then the link there where there's more support are kind of our smaller offers, but I just thought I'd include that link in case that gets circulated. And then again, I didn't consult with Lauren, but I've also linked to the map that her and Tom have both mentioned. And then just on top of what Alan said about the different improvements that have been going on, there's a link here which is always up to date on the changes, like Bristol Bridge and that kind of thing. So it's just a good way of kind of keeping up to date with what the council is doing. And then contact details in there. My two colleagues, Darren and Andy, also work on the business engagement team for access.
Okay, fantastic, Louise. If you can make me host again, then that would be great. Thank you.
And sorry, how did Lauren do that again?
If you go to the participants thing, either at the top or bottom,
there we go.
a list of 34 people. I'll be fairly near the top, I would think.
There you go.
I'm host. Huzzah! Love it when that happens. Okay, I'm going to put this up, or Julie will shout at me. But yeah, that is all of our lovely speakers. Thank you to all of them. We're going to open things up to questions now. So if you didn't get your question in while people were talking, stick them in the chat box now. I'll also just say, just because what tends to happen now is that as soon as all the speakers have finished, people start leaving. So I'll just give a quick plug. Please do join the mailing lists by going to either of our websites, cliftonclimateaction.org or bcrenergygroup.org, and go to the contact page. Do check out all of our local green resources on there. Particularly relevant to tonight is our better transport options page. There's loads of stuff about cycling and walking on there. And if you have enjoyed tonight's talk, please, please, please go to paypal.me/Clifton Climate Action. Even just a couple of pounds, £2 or £3. If everybody gave that, we'd be so happy. That would be absolutely fantastic. So I'm just going to leave that up there and do questions over here. So I'm going to start at the top. So they're probably going to be a little bit walking heavy for a bit. This week, they still have... So apparently, Alan, anything to say on Glasgow, who have apparently synchronized their walking priority so you can cross digital on crossroads? Is that something we can do more of in Bristol?
Okay. I don't think I've heard that. I'm not sure if I know what it means.
Okay. If Tim wants to put
Oh,
anything in.
diagonal.
Yes, I guess, yes, diagonally. So I guess if you've got lots of roads all crossing each other,
Well, there was something like that at Oxford Circus, wasn't there?
I think so.
In London.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know anything about that.
I can think of one place in Bristol that I'm pretty sure has it, but yeah. Another one for you. Why aren't laws against obstruction on pavements, such as sandwich boards and cafe tables, enforced locally?
Well, that's a good question. I assume the answer is probably council resource of enough people to go around enforcing these things.
Yeah,
I assume.
I hope you'll know more about this than I do. This next one. Is there the possibility for a Dutch-style roundabout like the recent one in Cambridge? Have you heard about this?
Yes, I have heard about that. That's probably one. Well, Tom may have some comments on this because that's for cycling as well. Yes, it's where cyclists, I'm not sure pedestrians, but certainly cyclists have priority around all the arms of the roundabout. They go on their own track.
Yes. Okay.
On the outside of the roundabout, and the cars have to stop for the bikes. I haven't heard that.
Go on, Tom.
And pedestrians. I think
it is pedestrians.
Parallel. I think the bikes and the cars, the bikes and the pedestrians are parallel.
Okay.
So they have priority.
Okay. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of anywhere that.
There has been mentioned by some commentators for Bedminster. Don't know what you call it. Bedminster sort of roundabout by Asda, across the two bridges that cross the river there.
I know what you're talking about. The Bear Pit is another one that springs to mind. Actually, I don't know if that's workable, but it's an idea. Do we know how Bristol City Council is spending the emergency part of the active travel changes? Emergency part of the active travel changes.
So that's referring to what I described as the fast track changes.
Mm-hmm.
So there are 3 rounds of that. So round 1 was spent on the sort of things I was describing in my presentation. Round 2, a lot of the changes are point closures. During the talk, Tom posted in the chat a link to a Bristol Post article which has published what the changes are, and there it is again.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got a link to the Bristol Post.
This is hot off the press. So this is expanding on what we discussed in the talk, and includes a reference to Clifton Village. So we will see what that means. Quite a few of them are high streets, Minor Road, St Mark's Road, Picton Street has a few shops and does that great Christmas sort of festival on there. But some of them are sort of preventing rat runs, as we discussed in the sort of our Bristol 24/7 article. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see people's reaction to that. It's always disappointing that people like Bristol Post announce it as roads being closed when they're not actually being closed. They're being sort of preventing through routes. For example, if people on Beaufort Road, which is a residential street, see that their road is going to be closed, that's the headline they read, and it's not always ideal for the council to for the press to put it in that fashion, I don't think, but
sure.
That's what papers live for the the click on the article, don't they? But I don't think it's ideal publicity. But I don't know what Lauren and Louise think about how that's presented as from a PR point of view as roads being closed.
Lauren, Louise, either of you want to come in on that? or we can move on. Yeah.
I will,
Maybe we'll save the conversation for the state of the news media for another time, but it's a good point.
Yeah, Dorian, I just add to that. So what that list in the Bristol Post is tranche 2, and the council bid only went into government last Friday, so it is very, very new, and it has to be implemented, or at least committed, by March next year.
Okay. I kind of want to find a question from down here that we can ask to the ladies from Travel West. But I think Lauren's been in the chat answering them all for me already. Where was it? Does Travel West have money to do a focused survey of several streets of terraces that are flats to find out how many people on average want secure bike parking? Is that something you'd consider doing?
So I would encourage, as I put in the chat, for you to put, I know, as you said, it would be all over the city, and you know, if car drivers put where they wanted to park, it would be all over the city. I would like to encourage you to put your marks where you know there would be interest for secure bike hangers, so that we could actually look at this to explore what would be possible in that area. It would have to be local engagement and consultation with the residents and around, so there would always be consultation. It would just be great to see. I know there is support for it, but we need to evidence that, so we can kind of start those conversations. So please pop them on the map. I know that they will be putting an option on the drop down for bike hangers specifically, so watch out for that. But just you can kind of put it in the narrative, and it will be picked up.
Great. And another one about Travel West. Do you have sort of evidence or data on what impact things like assisted cycles and journey planning have on people's behaviour?
So yeah, I think Louise answered that question really nicely in terms of businesses, and it's something that we always will do before and after monitoring for bespoke projects. So that's where we will be, finding the evidence that we've had impact, and of course we're always reporting back for funding. So yes, and including all of the individual offers as well. That's always that monitoring is given as well. So we're kind of looking more closely at who's taking those offers up, and the work I'm doing at the moment to kind of spread the offers to the community is really about getting them where people might not come across this. So it's having those individual conversations where they might not know about Travel West and the offers that are there, but really looking at what is needed specifically for that group or that area. It's not just a one size fits all situation. So there might be bespoke projects that are happening in different areas to help with inequalities across the city.
Sure. There's one here I think is an interesting question. So Philip asks, not sure why there would need to be much consultation to change a space for parking 1 vehicle to a space for parking 8 vehicles, i.e. cycle hangers. I can say, Philip, from my limited experience in Clifton Climate Action, that we looked into I don't know if you know the Mall Gardens in Clifton Village, but there's sort of 3 car parking spaces right on the end, and the fence around the Mall Gardens is always covered in bikes. The bike parking there is completely inadequate. And so we looked into what it would take to have those just 3 car parking spaces replaced with a whole array of bike stands. And the answer we got back was that we would need to raise the money that the council would otherwise have raised from having those spaces be open for people to pay and display for something like 5 years. It was an enormous amount of money that a local group like us has got no real hope of raising. And I'm sure someone is currently £57,000 was the amount we were quoted to turn 3 car parking spaces into bike racks. We did actually get a local councillor for Clifton to raise this with the mayor, and he basically defended it. So that policy's staying, at least for a while. Right, let's see what else we've got here in terms of questions. Does anyone else, I mean, I guess in terms of the consultation, it's an interesting question. How much should we be consulting with local people to ask for exchanges like that? Let's say somewhere where the money isn't such a factor. Is it still really important to canvass the opinion of one car driver if that space could be used to get 8 bikes hung up? Anyone want to take that slightly hot potato? No? Okay, then. I'll try and make my questions a little less spicy.
I think consultation is key, and that's where things will ultimately fall down if the consultation isn't done well enough and with enough data and evidence. And I don't think we want to try and pit bike parking against car parking. It's just trying to find locations where we can and make it more mainstream. I think we've been told that there is no budget for cycle parking, for example, but if there is, I don't think the aim would be to sort of take away existing car parking, because that will just cause the council no end of trouble. But trying to find areas where we can do it in existing space is probably key. But yeah, consultation is key for the council, but it's difficult for them to do it as quickly as they probably want to at the moment.
No, okay, fair, very fair point. In fact, there's a question sort of related to this here. Businesses in my area seem actively hostile to livable neighbourhoods, I think. Are there examples of successful engagement? And someone has replied, Waltham Forest. If anyone's not familiar with the massive success they've had in Waltham Forest in turning it into a livable neighbourhood, I believe there's a video about it on, what's the website for the livable neighbourhood project?
Livablebristol.org.
Right, yeah, go on there. I'm pretty sure the video about Waltham Forest is on there, and it's really worth watching. Okay, so I think this one is again a little bit about walking. How do you preserve access for disabled people in wheelchairs, visually impaired people, etc., when businesses are spreading out all over the pavements?
I think this is a difficult one. I think ideally what should happen, where the pavement is widened, then the space that the businesses take over should be not on the pavement itself, but in the space taken away from the road. Mm-hmm. And then disabled people can still get through on the pavement. I think that's the answer. The same is true of visually impaired people. They need to be able to get through on the pavement as well.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. With a question here about e-scooters. Apparently Paris has got quite a lot of e-scooters. Do we think these will help or hinder cycling and walking systems in Bristol if they become even more mainstream?
Well, I think I mean, they're going to come, obviously. Mm. I think for walkers, they present the same issues as cycles, in that they're going much faster than walking. So you've got to be careful when you allow them to mix. So as walkers, we would argue that just in the same way we need segregated routes for people on bikes, then those segregated routes should be used by the e-scooters as well as the bikes.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. If anyone listening does want to know more about e-scooters, we had a talk about alternatives to owning a fossil fuel car about a month ago. The video of that is now on our website and on the BCR Energy Group YouTube channel. Yeah, we had a speaker talking about e-scooters at that, so go and check that one out. I'm being reminded that I should have mentioned the Downs Loop already. Some people are putting together a proposal to basically make a cycling and walking track around the Downs, which would prioritize sort of people just out for a nice walk or a nice cycle. And that's open for consultation right now. So www.thedownsloop.com for more information and to give your thoughts. And I think it sounds like a really interesting idea. Yeah, go and share that with your casual cycling friends. What else have we got here? Yep. got that. Will Bristol have a walking/cycling SAR like Chris Boardman in Manchester? I wasn't aware this was a position, but are we getting one of those?
It's not planned. What I would say is a czar or champion, or whatever you like to call it, is of no use unless there's also political backing for what they want to see done. You know, Chris Boardman couldn't have got what he'd done, got done in Greater Manchester without the support of Andy Burnham, and indeed he probably wouldn't have taken on the job without the support of Andy Burnham. So I think it's the political support that comes first, probably.
Yeah, I think a lot's been made of that role, hasn't it? Because Chris Boardman is so brilliant, and he's almost become a sort of national figure, even though he's working for Manchester. But the key is probably the support and the funding to actually get on and do what that person thinks is the right thing to do. And you know, you wouldn't want someone going out and engaging a lot with businesses about how exciting proposals unless they had the backing. But in fairness to the council, tonight's hot off the press. There's a lot more schemes again, and a lot more sort of political bravery than have been seen in previous years. So maybe that trend will continue, and a sort of figurehead might be a good thing.
I think it is a powerful thing. We've got the same thing with Boris Johnson. He's appointed Andrew Gilligan at a national level, although he's not so visible maybe as Chris Boardman is. He's playing a really powerful role in driving through some of these active travel changes, but and doing so because he's got the support of Boris Johnson.
Yeah, there's a few questions here for Travel West, which I think they've diligently been answering in the comments. But just a very broad one, I guess, about how we make people feel safer while cycling. Yeah, I'd love to sort of hear what you think, Lauren.
Louise, do you want to just talk about that in terms of business first?
Yeah, so I kind of replied in the chat, just kind of, I suppose the main thing, like for me, feeling safer cycling is knowing that I can actually ride a bike. So we always signpost firstly to free adult cycle training. We offer that through Life Cycle. And yeah, and also, as Lauren mentioned, we have got, I think as well, it depends on who is cycling. So if you're cycling like with a family, she mentioned that we've got the Family Cycling Centre, which is a really safe space to like practice cycling with the family. We've got various different bikes, like ones that you can ride with children on the back and things, to kind of trial in a safe space before trialing like on a road space. I think Lauren, then you had bits to add in the chat.
Yeah, no, I just echo that really. That's what I was going to say. It is about working with particular groups to overcome like certain barriers across our city, I think. But yeah, certainly knowing that you have a safe space to practice, and that you can access some tuition, and we have that for free, is really important for people to know that they have the skills. But also I think those are accompanied rides, and we'd like to develop those perhaps into kind of travel buddy system, just looking at how we might do that at the moment, just to explore how you might kind of travel in a multimodal way as well, just kind of connecting up that it might be a walk and a bus, or it might be a short cycle and knowing where the parking is, and knowing your routes. Certainly that the life cycle training really changed how I cycle around the city, and how I drive around the city. I also drive cars, don't own a car, but I also drive cars. So it's very useful to just highlight different road users as well, and how people use the space differently.
One thing that makes me feel more safe when I'm cycling is proper bike lanes, and it looks like we're getting a few more of those. So yeah, hopefully that'll make people feel a bit more safe and confident. I'm conscious of the time, and I'm also conscious that about a third of the people who were in this meeting have now left. because we are getting on a bit. So I really want to get to just the last few questions. If anyone's got anything absolutely burning and desperate they want to ask, stick it in now. Where was that one? You mentioned bike users clubs, I think it was. Buck clubs, was it? Or buck groups? We had a question.
Bug groups, bike user groups.
Right, that was it. That was it. Someone's asked the question of how many of the people in these groups are on single-geared bikes. She was put off by a group who said she would struggle on her bike with them, but she's keen to join a leisure cycling group. Are there that sort of group?
Yeah, no. So a bike user group isn't really a cycling group to go off and do bike ride with. So a bike user group, we encourage businesses to kind of set them up. So we have one at Bristol City Council for staff to join, and it's kind of finding out what everything facility-wise that is available to you as a cyclist in your organisation. So finding out about the Cycle to Work scheme and that kind of thing, and keeping up to date. And it's also a kind of opportunity to, if you're it's kind of an opportunity to have a group that could then lobby the organisation really to get more done if you wanted to increase cycle parking and that kind of thing. So rather than an actual cycling group that would go out and do a ride together.
Okay. I'm just having a scan through the questions. We said it would be discussed later. Okay, thanks, Julie. Oh yeah, we asked that one. Why not change residences? Okay, why not charge residents a small annual fee for use in the same way they do for parking spaces? I assume this is about bike hangers or something. I suppose that would cover the cost. Not sure it would make cycling the massively more incentivized option if you started charging people more to do it than they currently are, but I guess it's one way. Yep, okay, that's a link to the Liverpool Bristol and the Waltham Forest video. Downs Loop proposal, Gloucester Road, but e-scooters. Yes, e-scooters are technically illegal. We talked about this at our meeting on alternatives to electric vehicles. You're allowed to ride them on private land, but technically riding them on roads and cycle paths and things is strictly speaking illegal, but our understanding is that nobody's being stopped from doing it, and there is talk of a trial period coming in Bristol at some point, so hey, wait for that and then you won't even be breaking the law. That's nice. Active Travel England, maybe local. Oops. Too many questions. God, we could go on for ages doing this. Okay, thanks. Some people are leaving. Okay, yes, I think we're done. But thank you everybody for coming. Please do check out the links to all of our stuff. Check out Travel West, the Bristol Walking Alliance, and of course Bristol Cycle. Bristol Cycling Campaign. There it is. I forgot the word campaign. It's 9 o'clock on a Thursday. It's been a long night. Thanks everyone for coming. Please do donate, check out the websites and everything. And we'll be back on the second Thursday of, the fourth Thursday of August, talking about trains and buses. But yeah, have a good evening.